This episode is sponsored by 1 Minute Calm. Breathe, live, and love the moment that you're in. Walk and Talk with Avalon podcast. Mindful motivation, everyday inspiration. Hi, welcome to another episode of Health, Wealth, and Happiness. I'm Christina, the creator and founder of Azimoth Entertainment. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, I'm Christina, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Interviews to Inspire. Our next guest is a mental health therapist providing service for over 23 years to children, adults, families, and couples, helping clients deal with their most difficult and or traumatic times. Born in Haiti and migrated to the U.S. at age 8, let's welcome Nathalie.
Hello. Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hello. So excited to have you share with us today. I love your office. Tell us what you do because I find this so fascinating.
Yes. So I am a mental health therapist. And so my title is licensed professional counselor. So over 23 years ago, I had got my master's in professional counseling. So I provide therapy, mental health therapy in particular, trauma work, a lot of trauma work with individuals, families, couples, children, adults, people who suffer with depression, anxiety, trauma, you name it, I do a lot of it. So my goal is to really help people work through, like you said, their difficult and traumatic times to get to a place of healing.
So Nathalie's health word is balance. And considering her work she does, tell us about balance in your life and your health life.
Yes, so balance is such an important word for me, an important way of life for me, because as you know, we play so many different roles. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a therapist, I'm a friend. I have so many roles in my life, and within myself, there's so many parts of me, right? My mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health, my finances, just so many things that I do. And so it's always about trying to figure out how to balance myself. And so I take very intentional steps and effort to make sure that there is balance in my routine, balance in the way that I do things, so that I've checked off all the boxes with all of these things, because it's so easy for things to get neglected when I'm not being intentional in creating balance. And we could tell, our body tells us, right? So when we're not getting enough sleep, when we're not resting, when we're not doing enough of certain things, then you're going to feel that deficit. You're going to feel it. And so I always got to make sure, how do I recenter myself and create balance into my life? So that's such a big part for me.
Yeah. So how did you start to realize that you needed more balance in your life? Was there something that happened and you just kind of said, okay, we've got to set this straight?
Well, interestingly, when I graduated college back in 97, so this is me at 22, 23 years old, I started getting sick. I couldn't hold down any food, just losing a lot of weight. I was already skinny and just lost more and more weight. And at the end of all that, first of all, the doctors couldn't physically find anything wrong, right? And so at some point, one of the doctors says it's mental. It's all mental. And for me, it was at that point, because I was graduating college and just all the energy and time I took in just focusing on that and the anxiety of the future once you graduate, what's going to happen next. I think, again, it took a toll on my body, right? And at that time, I had just graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology. So I was understanding the importance of psychology, the importance of the mind, because that was the field I was going to go into in the future. And so that was a big eye opener for me, the importance of creating balance in my life and the importance of taking care of myself in all aspects of myself. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of it for me. So I think that was definitely something. And along the way, too, just finding that I have a listening ear. People just tend to sit and just tell me all their business. right?
Do you have somebody who kind of influenced you to get into psychology and into this kind of arts, therapy arts?
You know, I wouldn't necessarily say so. When I was growing up, that's not necessarily anything that I saw. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so that's not anything that I saw in terms of the mental health or therapist. But I think for me, in things that I saw in my family um, growing up, and the need for a space for people to have conversations, to talk and to explore and work through things. I think that was always something that I noticed, and I think that became an inspiration to go into the field. And so, yeah, I was probably about 13, 14 when I said, you know what, I wouldn't mind being a therapist, somebody who sits and listens to people. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, my degree is actually in psychology as well. And
Mhm.
I noticed for me in age 12, I was noticing things about the world just a little differently. I know we're stepping into our adult minds, but I'm like, wow, I can see how that person could solve this problem if they just did it this way. But you're 12 and nobody wants to listen to you. But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to watch that. And for me, I use mindfulness today. How about you? What do you do to continue your health balance today?
Yes, mindfulness is a great strategy, and really being present, right? Because oftentimes we tend to be in the past or the future, right? Thinking a lot about the things that's happened in the past and having all types of emotions and feelings connected to that in terms of anger and depression and all those things. And or often a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen in the future, the unknowns of the future. And so mindfulness for me, and what I often preach to my clients, it's really about taking opportunity and being present. And the present is a gift, right? And in the present moment, you can shift the narrative of what you would like the past to be and what you would want the future to be. And all that happens right now, because all we have is right now. And so, yeah, mindfulness is a great strategy for that. So yeah, I do a lot of mindfulness, yoga, um, is something that I love doing. So I do yoga at least once a week. Physical energy for me. So for me, with a lot of my stressors, because again, I sit and listen to clients all day, and so I feel a lot of their energy, and so that's an energy that gets transferred into me, and I could feel the weight and feel a lot of that, and so I have to release some of that through physical energy. So dancing, movement, exercising is ways that I do that. Um, yeah, so those are just a few ways: dancing, movement, exercise, walking, yoga, mindfulness, reading, and just creating spaces where I can disconnect at times, disconnect from things that's happening, and also reshift and recenter myself in the present as I continue to move forward.
I love it. We'll come to your house for a little dance party, a little yoga.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I
most
remember my 45th birthday a few years back. That was what I invited friends over. So I invited friends to this. I rented this little yoga spot, and I had this lady. I had just finished a dance thing, and I'm like, oh, can you come and do some dance? So for the first hour, so I had like 10, 15 friends. For the first hour, she taught us some dance moves, and then the second hour, we had a little break, and then had some cake and did happy birthdays, and then the second hour, the lady they gave us some yoga. She did yoga for about an hour. So those are the things that I definitely value. Self-care is definitely something that I value.
all right, wise words about balance in everyone's health. Nathalie's wealth word is a healer. She is someone you can hear her wisdom from her own life and from dealing with so many in her experiences. Please tell us more about wealth as a healer.
Over the years, like I said, I've been in practice for over 23 years, and I've seen so many people, so many levels in their healing journey. Um, and yeah, I think at this point, from all the things that I've experienced and everything that I've seen, I would definitely consider myself a healer, and that's a wealth. That's my wealth word, because it's when we can be in that place where we can be healing. I think that's so powerful. I mean, that's wealth in itself, right? Because then that opens doors for so many things. And so, yeah, as a healer, I am here to kind of give people the opportunity and the options, the knowledge. So my business is Esteem Counseling and Consulting Services. And Esteem is an acronym: Empower Self through Enrichment, Education, and Motivation. And for me, the empowering and the enrichment and the education and motivation, all of that is regarding mental health, right? So I'm a strong advocate of mental health awareness. Mental health matters. And so, and as we educate, or as I educate others and I empower others and I enrich people in this mental health part, that includes the self-care, it includes the going to therapy, it includes all of that, then yeah, that's a part of, that's my journey. That's my wealth to the world, is to be a healer. And people, a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are in pain. A lot of people go through things. That's life, right? And so I often tell people the stuff that we go through, because it's life, it's not going to stop, right? I often use this example: life is like the ocean, and the ocean is full of waves. There's always a wave coming, small, big, depending on what's going on with the moon and the weather and all that stuff. The wave is coming, right? And a lot of times people are waiting for the next wave. They're in anticipation of that wave because they know that there's always a wave, right? Versus just focusing on being the best swimmer you can be. Part of my role with clients is to help them be the best swimmer, because life is full of waves and the waves is coming. That's a given. There's always going to be something happening in life, right? But when you are learning to be the best that you can be in all aspects of the balance, going back to balance with financial health, emotional health, mental health, physical health, when you're learning how to create a good game plan for yourself and manage and learning how to take care of all of those aspects in the best way that works for you, then whenever the wave comes, you're in a better position. Because what I often tell people, when something happens and you're exhausted, how we cope and deal with that is a lot different when that something happens and you're rested and you have things in place and you're in a good position, right? That's the part we can control, is what we're going to do, how we're going to make sure we're good. The thing happening, we can't control, although we think we can. We try to, right? And so I have a lot of clients who are in a position where they're constantly chasing, like a dog chasing its tail, right? Feeling as if they could try to keep that wave from happening, keep this thing. And so that's, right, they're constantly like that. And that's creates the exhaustion. That creates the anxiety. That creates the thing, because it's like, my God, I just finished one. There's another one. There's always going to be another one, right? So the goal is, that's not where your focus needs to be. The focus is focusing on self and trying to be the best self you can be. Make sure you're mentally do the mental work, do the physical work, do the emotional work, do the work that you need to be, so that when this does come, you're in a better position to deal with it and cope with it.
It's definitely a continuance of a journey too, for everybody. Things happen, they continue to happen. It's not like we're just sitting in our little isolated box and going, okay, I'm good here.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's the thing too, right? Oftentimes people they just want things to be good and stay good, right? And that's the false thinking, which is why they're thinking, if I just control and get it good, then I'll be good forever. No, as long as we're living this life, there's always things. But the more we do our work, we add things to our toolbox to help us be better. And as things come, we can handle it better. We can handle it differently because we have more things in our toolbox. We have more skills, more healthy mindsets, because again, our mindset plays a big part. A lot of the work I do engage in having conversations about people's past and upbringings, right? Because I want to always understand where you came from. Your family of origin, your childhood, your growing up experiences, because of course that shapes and forms who we are today. Good, bad, or indifferent, whatever that experience is. And so part of my role is to bring some insight, bring some understanding and awareness to, okay, let's look at all of this and let's bring for you to have better insight and understanding and awareness of who you are, right? And so then as you see yourself in the present, how does all of who you are affect the present, and how do you then engage in with things for your future, right? And it's important that people have that conversation and do that work, because of course our past, of course, influences who we've become, and also influences the choices we continue to make in our present and into our future. And so it's amazing how, again, there's a lot of people with a lot of unhealthy mindset, unhealthy way of thinking, again, based on their experiences. And the key is how to just note that and see, okay, where can we create some changes? Where can we create some shifts so that you're in a healthier space, emotionally, mentally, and physically, in all ways.
Do you have a particular favorite story or something you can share with us about your journey as a healer, of somebody that you've worked with and watching the transformation without using names?
Yeah, as you know, as it's so many stories. A lot of the work when I first started was working in as a therapist in a group foster homes. So a lot of that was working with children and families that's in the foster care system. And so this is, again, 23 plus years ago. And so now I have these same clients who are now, they're adults, and have talked about and have seen how they've transformed over the years. A lot of them keep in touch with and have kept in touch, and just seeing how, despite their initial beginnings, how doing some of that work have created a shift in how they're going to continue to live their life. And so, yeah, I have this one particular young lady who, again, growing abandoned as a child by her family and her parents, and again, just how bleak that is, right? But giving her the opportunity to kind of learn to trust, have faith and trust the world. But that takes time. It takes time in terms of processing her hurts, processing her past, processing her abandonment, and giving her the opportunity to kind of recognize that just because this happened doesn't mean it has to continue to happen moving forward, and how to be mindful of who she has around. So there's lots of different levels of work that has to be done, right? But in all of that, I think what I see is just her really recognizing how to not allow what she's been through to continue to, because again, we talk about generational cycles, generational curses when it comes to therapy with a lot of my clients too, because a lot of times when people come in, there's histories of things, and they're able to recognize the histories. And so I have clients, who's really good at saying, I want the curse to stop here. I want the generational cycles to stop here. I want to be different from my predecessors, right? And taking the intentional efforts. And so with that particular client, her being able to recognize, I want to, when I become a mother, when I become a wife, I want to do things differently, despite the difficulties. Because again, it will be difficult, right? So when people have made choices to, in her case, when moms and fathers made choice to abandon, it's not people, it's not like, oh, I want to abandon my kid. Life happens. A lot of people have poor skills, doesn't have the support, doesn't have tools, doesn't have things. And so, when she found herself in some of those situations, how to then ask for help and how to get the help. And so she was constantly doing the work to recognize, oh, I'm noticing this about me. I'm noticing that about me. Okay, let me get some tools. Let me get some skills. Let me get the education. Let me get these things so I can do something different, so I can be different, so I can challenge these deficits and do something different. And so, yeah, and just being able to see how that looks over time for her, which has been great, because she's now a mother and a wife, and doing things different, and so although it's difficult, and that's the conversation, right? And for her in a lot of different ways, because she didn't have a mother and a father that was there for her. So what does that look like when now she's trying to be there for her child? So it's a lot of conversations, but Yeah, that's one of many. And people who come back and say, well, I'm using this tool you gave me, or this strategy over here. This is how I'm using it to do something different. Because I'm very hands-on. And so with that, I created this workbook, How to Stay Mentally Healthy, which is a lot of the activities that I do with clients. I put it all in the workbook. So I give homework, I give assignments. I'm like, here are practical things, you know, because sometimes there's concepts that's when it comes to mental health that's hard to understand. And so I like to put it in practical ways. It's like I like to talk about the ocean. Life is like the ocean. There's always a wave. Everybody understand that physically, right? And so, yeah, stuff that happens is like a wave. So if you're swimming, if you're learning how to swim, if you become the best swimmer you can be, then again, no matter how big the wave comes, it'll be good. And so the tools we're building, that's how you become the best. Work on tools, work on that. Let's focus on that. If there's something you're lacking, if there's something that's going on, being vulnerable enough to talk about it. So again, a big part of my practice and my mission is to break the stigma when it comes to mental health. And so to break that stigma, we have to break the shame, and then we have to break the silence, right? Because it's all connected: stigma, shame, and silence. And so it's about having conversations about mental health so that people can ask for help. People can say, well, I don't, things aren't going so good, right? Because when we don't ask for help, then we're kind of holding on to it all by ourselves, and then we're suffering in silence. Because when there's tools out there, there's resources, there's things out there, but we have to be open enough, and we feel vulnerable and safe enough to ask. So I definitely want to be that space, and I definitely want to keep pushing that message.
What's nice too is it's really being talked about a lot more than it was 20 years ago in these last few years. And I think it's a wonderful topic because it starts with a conversation. The healing, I
It
think,
does.
starts with a conversation.
It does. It does. I think for a lot of people, when we've been in our situation for so long, it starts to be the norm, right? And when we have conversation, we get to realize, oh, okay, other people are going through this and some of that too. Oh, okay, we can do something different about it because some people are doing something different. Oh, I don't have to deal with this by myself, or I don't have to just feel stuck here, right? And so one of the things I often tell my clients, I'm all about this being an option. This being an option, but also knowing as you become more insightful and aware, recognizing you have options. Now, whatever you choose to do, it's fine. That's the beauty of the free will, and that's the beauty of things too, is you could choose anything, but know that you have choices. You have lots of choices, but often people feel stuck, right? People feel as if they don't, when the reality is we do. It may not always be comfortable, it may not be always easy, what the options are, what the alternative is. And so part of my work is to help them recognize and dig deep into what is uncomfortable, what feels vulnerable, right? Because we want to feel good, right? And so we're going to do things we don't want to feel uncomfortable at times. And so we're going to do whatever it is that's going to make us be okay. And sometimes it's what we're used to. And sometimes we have to get outside the box. And like I always tell people, growth and elevation is going to be uncomfortable at first. That's a part of that journey. It doesn't mean it's you're going to get hurt, right?
And someone who is just getting into working with people with trauma, what kind of advice do you have for them, for somebody who's brand new with your experience?
And so when somebody's brand new, first, it's important that you do your own work, right? And so with everything, mental health affects everything in every way, in every profession, and everything, right? And so how we view the world, how we view ourselves, how we take care of all parts of ourselves is going to impact, again, how we view everything else. And so because this is the field that's very demanding, right? To have to sit and listen to people's worst nightmares, because again, in dealing with trauma, we're dealing with all kinds of levels of things that people have gone through, and we have to take it on. So part of what we're signing up is to say, here, I'll hold on to your burden. I'll hold on to what you're saying and carry it with you and help you work through it, right? And so in doing this type of work, you got to make sure you're good. You got to do your own work, right? Before you even get to this space. So there's levels of work, or else you'll constantly be triggered yourself, right? So self-care is really key. So I've done this training on because as a therapist, I also have to I do trainings with other therapists. I train other therapists because we have to get training, 35 hours of continuing education. So I train other therapists, and I also supervise therapists. When clients, likewise, when new therapists come into the field, they have to have supervision for 3 years. So I provide supervision as well. And so one of the things I talk to everybody about is the importance of self-care, because in working with trauma victims, there's another thing called vicarious trauma. When they're telling us our stories, guess what? Now we're traumatized too, because we're listening to the details of the things that they're saying so that we can help them work through it. And so that becomes very traumatic for us as well. And so that's called vicarious trauma. And so we have to do our own work to make sure we have our self-care plan and our wellness plan to make sure we're good. And that's a continuous, like you mentioned earlier, the healing journey is a continuous journey. The being well journey, that's an ongoing thing. Because today we're good, and tomorrow we could hear some bad news and things are off again, and we have to figure out how to get back on track. So it's an ongoing journey. So self-care would be what I would definitely recommend.
I can say this about you. You have a huge heart, because it's not easy doing the job that you do as a lifelong career. So congratulations for a successful career path.
Thank you. I definitely enjoyed it. It's always good to hear when clients say, "Oh," or when you see the light bulb, it's like, "Oh," right? And when they're noticing, I'm setting better boundaries. I'm saying no. I'm advocating for myself. I'm speaking up for myself. When you're seeing the clients kind of retell the story and their story and their experiences, and noticing the good effects, right? Noticing how it makes them feel, and noticing the progress in their life, right? Because it's possible to do it all. Many times when I first started this work and I'm talking about boundaries, I'm talking about doing your healing journey and what all it takes to do that. When people are used to what they've been doing, they feel guilty. There's a lot of guilt in setting boundaries. There's a lot of guilt in telling people no. There's a lot of guilt in creating your own self-care plan, right? Because people are used to giving. And the majority of my clients are women, right? And these are women, just the nature of our roles as women in this society and what that looks like. And then these are women on top of that, they're mothers, they're wives, right? And so being mother and a wife and everything else that we are, guess what? We put ourselves last, right? And then how to, again, create a balance as much as possible with all of that.
Hi, it's Sylvia Torstein on Health, Wealth, and Happiness. You know what happiness is? Being able to swim at the pool and look at the stars at night, and trying to be quiet so I don't disturb anybody, because it's fun. That's happiness to me. You can see some stars out there right now. And heated pools, there's nothing like that. That's pure happiness. Knowing how to swim, well, that's happiness. True, not drowning. Keeping your feet on the bottom and doggy paddling if you need to, but don't bring glass. No glass, no nothing in the pool, just you, and don't pee. There's bathrooms, there's restrooms, there's WCs, there's toilets. You use those, not the pretty blue water that we all swim in. That's pure happiness. Let me just say, minute by minute, I admire Nathalie even more. And her happiness word is family. I know you come from a close-knit family. Tell us about happiness as your family word.
Yes, so it was interesting. I had a hard time trying to find what that word needed to be. And so I guess ultimately family. And I put family because I play a lot of different roles in my family. Of course, I'm a mother, and I'm a daughter, a sister, niece, cousin, and all these roles are roles that I hold very dearly. And so again, going back to part of who I am as a healer and a balance, I also want to offer all that to my family members as well. So in these different roles, I offer some of that to them too. So again, being around family and being able to offer um, and provide a little bit of what I love in terms of my healing and all of that to my family members is what I enjoy. And so that's what brings me happiness.
Was there a time when you stepped away from family and then got back to family going, yeah, this is my happy spot?
I wouldn't necessarily say there's ever been a time where I've stepped out of my family. Um, but I would say even in family, there's importance of creating the balance, right? And so, because when you're a close family and you do a lot for family, because my parents are immigrants who came to the US as well. And so when you're navigating a lot for family, sometimes you kind of lose yourself in all of that as well. Right. And so the need for balance is again very important even within family, how to set boundaries and how to say no and how to make sure, give time for everything and not just for one thing. And so I think it's more so that, but family's always been a part of my life since I was a child.
And you come from a very happy culture.
Yes.
So how often do you get the chance to see family, be with family, do things and celebrate with family?
I would say a lot of the times. And so my family, my immediate family is real close by. So of course I have a 21-year-old son who lives with me. And so we get to do a lot of things. And so of course him being 21, he's into his own thing, doing his own thing. And so creating some intentional time for us to do things together, that's important, at least on a weekly basis. And yeah, my family, immediate family, they're close by. And so at least, again, we said once a month, trying to create time where we're playing games and doing different things together. So I have two brothers. My parents are still living. And so, yeah, so making sure that we're meeting not just on obligations in obligational times or when people are dealing with older parents, not just when they need you for something or when I need them for something, making sure we're spending time enjoying each other's present and playing games and doing different things like that. So I would say at this time very often, and then my extended family as much as possible. So that's when we had an opportunity to meet. I have lots of family in Florida. My mother's family's in Florida, so I'd say at least once every quarter we're in Florida for something.
So much fun. I love it. Your family is just so fun to be around, honestly. Now, considering your fun family and the difference, there's a lot of the family has been pulled apart here in the States, and having grown up somewhere else until you were 8 years old and kind of converting into a new culture and seeing the differences in family ties. How do you think that affected the way that you see your family today and like other friends that you might have been around? Were you around people who had that similar closeness or apart? What was your experience?
I think some of the things that I have observed, particularly with other families, um, sometimes in closeness, things can become very enmeshed and people tend to have a lot of poor boundaries. There tend to be some interdependence depending on the culture, depending on what's happening. And so I think because in the US, it's a very individualistic type of culture too. And so um, despite all myself and my siblings being in the home till you know, we got married in our late 20s, right? Went off to college and then come back and staying there because that's part of the culture is you kind of stay home until you're married to have your own home, right? Yeah, then just trying to figure out how to do that, how to kind of be in our own spaces because I think part of a lot of the Haitian cultures everybody's together, and a lot of Caribbean cultures the intergenerational culture and all of that, and so yeah, I think trying to do some things to not necessarily fit into the American culture, but to be a part of this culture, yet still integrating the Haitian culture. Because again, we see each other all the time because that's what we do. And we're all in our own little homes doing our thing, but we come together and make sure we see each other all the time. So I think that's something we see. I think the other thing, like I mentioned, making sure there's a healthy level of um, communication, healthy level of connections as well. Because one of the things I find again, as I hear different people from Haiti or in the Caribbean or in different parts, there's a lot of, again, enmeshment and a lot of core boundaries, right? So recognizing when children are now adults, that they are adults and that they have to make adult decisions. So although you're the parent, you have to allow your child, who is an adult, to make their adult decisions. And sometimes you often hear that clash. And I see that a lot with clients. A lot of parents a lot of my clients who deal with parents who tend to be very controlling or overwhelming or um, enmeshed in their lives and trying to separate that. But that's not anything that I've necessarily experienced, but I hear that happens.
Do you have a particular role model in your family? Somebody that influenced you in certain decisions or kind of was like your confidant?
Absolutely. I have an aunt, um, my father's sister. So part of my story, all of my mother's siblings came to the U.S. when I was still very young, as not even born yet or really little. And so my mother had the opportunity to come to the US with her siblings when I was 1 or 2. So my mother came to the US first. And so myself and my older brother, we stayed behind in Haiti with my dad. And so I'm very so my dad and his sisters. So I'm very much close to my dad and his sisters. And my mother was here in the US until she was able to bring all of us in when I was 8. Um, And so then I have a particular aunt that, yeah, you know, she's the epitome of strength, epitome of family, and all of that. And so she's one that I definitely confide in and look to and role model um, in all her decisions because she's very revolutionary in how she did things, and she did things just follow her own beat and did things her own way. And so she's one to this day that I look up to.
That's awesome. It's always great, I find happiness in my family as well, and, I have an aunt who's the second mom to me, and it's special. It's a special place in our
Yeah,
hearts.
it is. Very much is. Very much is. Yeah, so my aunts and my dad's sisters, they've definitely played a big part in because they were yeah, like you said, they were like second, third, fourth mothers because he had 3 sisters, 5 mothers at this point, to me. So yeah, so I really enjoyed their presence and everything that they offered into who I am as a woman.
So, Natalie, if you could give the gift of health, wealth, or happiness, which would you give and why?
I would definitely pick the gift of health in terms of the balance. I would definitely make sure that people understand how to create balance in their life. Because with balance, you could get everything else that you're looking for as well. But it's important to find balance. It's important to look at the whole picture of your life and all of yourself and figure out what is it that you need and make sure that you pour into each of those parts of what you need and create balance in that way.
All right, we're all getting in line. And next, we have a question from our previous guest.
What is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
I think the legacy I would like to leave behind is for every individual to know that they matter and they matter in every way, right? All that you have to say, all that you have to feel, all that you think, all that you do, everything about you matters. And if it's not to anyone else, making sure it matters to you. Because that's the first part, right? Oftentimes, I get clients who's used to things not mattering to anybody, and so then it no longer mattered to them either. And once it starts to matter to you, by default, it starts to matter to others. Because if this is important to me, I'm going to make sure everybody knows it's important to me. And so then by default, people get to see, oh, okay, don't bother here right now. Don't bother her with her time because that's important to her, right? But if something isn't important to me, it's not going to be important to anyone else. And so I think it's important that people understand that who you are, what you are, everything about you matters. And as long as you know that and you lead with that, um, you express that, you advocate for that, things will fall in place. The workbook is something people can get. Part of the reason for it is for people who aren't quite ready for therapy but need to start having the conversations with themselves, and so that's what that workbook is for. And then I also have two children's book, which is a boy version and a girl version of um, Where's My Daddy? It's for children grieving an absent father, and absent, not deceased, but just absent, right? And father who's in and out of their lives, and the importance of understanding that it is a loss and that they are grieving that loss. When a parent isn't there the way they should be, the child is going to experience losses. Not everybody that I work with have insurance, and a lot of people can't afford therapy. So my son actually has a clothing brand, and so he makes the sweatshirts for me.
Nice.
And I sell them, and the proceeds is to provide free or discounted services to clients. So that's what the sweatshirts are for.
Kudos to you for being in a place where people need you. So Nathalie, I want to thank you again for joining us today, and I hope we get to see you again real soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina. I would love to.
Until next time, my friends.